The glass ceiling shattered above my head before I even knew what was happening. I dropped low, grabbed the old ambassador by his collar, and yanked him behind a marble pillar just as a black shape crashed down onto the polished floor where he had been standing a second ago. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I am Marcus Vale, a sergeant in the Terran Defense Corps, and I had been on this alien planet for exactly 6 hours when everything went wrong. Let me back up a little. My name is not famous. I am not a hero. I am a soldier from a small colony world, third-generation military, and I never wanted to be standing in a palace made of living crystal. But Earth needed an alliance, and the Zarin Imperium was our only hope. The Kravok swarm was coming for us. 3 years, maybe less, and they would reach our borders. We could not stop them alone. No one could. So our government sent Ambassador Holden, a kind old man with white hair and shaking hands, to beg for help. And they sent me and 5 other soldiers to guard him. We were background decoration. Nobody important. That was the idea. But then I met her. Princess Lyra Nessa Velshara, the heir to the crystalline throne, silver hair that moved like water, violet eyes that looked through you like you were made of glass, and the cruelest smile I had ever seen on a living face. She had walked into the great hall an hour earlier, surrounded by her royal guards, and she had looked at our ambassador like he was something stuck to her shoe. She had listened to his speech about friendship between our peoples. She had listened to his desperate request for ships, weapons, soldiers, anything. And then she had laughed. "Humans," she said in her cold, musical voice, "you are loud. You are fragile. You live for 80 years and you call that a life. You crawl out of your little corner of the galaxy and you ask us, the Zarin, to bleed for you. We do not make alliances with mayflies." The entire court had laughed with her. Hundreds of tall, beautiful, perfect beings, all laughing at a tired old man who had crossed half the galaxy to ask for help. I saw Ambassador Holden's shoulders sag. I saw his hands tremble more than usual. He nodded slowly, accepted the insult, and turned to leave. That was when a Zarin noble, some cousin of the princess, stuck out his foot. The ambassador tripped on the long steps of the throne dais. He fell hard, and the noble laughed. Something snapped inside me. I do not know what it was. Maybe it was 6 months of studying their language in secret, because I believed respect started with understanding. Maybe it was watching a good man be humiliated for no reason. Maybe it was just being a soldier from a colony world where we did not tolerate this kind of thing. I stepped forward. I helped the ambassador up, and then I spoke, not in English, in perfect High Zarin, the formal court language that almost no outsider ever bothered to learn. "Your Highness," I said, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. "On my world we have a saying, anyone can be born into a crown. It takes a true ruler to earn one. Today you have shown us many things. You have shown us your beauty. You have shown us your power. You have shown us your wealth. But you have not shown us one thing a leader should have. You have not shown us grace." The laughter stopped. The silence was so complete I could hear my own breathing. The princess turned her head slowly. Her violet eyes locked onto mine. For the first time she actually saw me, a human soldier, a nobody in armor, speaking her sacred language better than half her courtiers. She opened her mouth to say something. I will never know what it was. Because that was the exact moment the ceiling exploded. Glass and crystal rained down. 3 dark shapes dropped through the hole, armored figures moving faster than anything I had ever seen. They were not Zarin. They had too many joints. Their faces were hidden behind angled black helmets, and they were coming straight for the princess. Kravok infiltrators here, inside the palace. Everything after that happened in flashes. I grabbed the ambassador and shoved him behind the pillar. I drew my sidearm, the only weapon they had let me carry into the hall. The royal guards were already moving, but they were slow, too slow, still shocked that an attack could even happen here. The first Kravok reached the princess. Her bodyguard raised his energy blade. The Kravok moved around him like water moving around a rock. The bodyguard went down. I do not remember deciding to move. I just moved. I hit the Kravok from the side at full speed. We crashed together into a display case full of ancient crystal statues. I could feel something crack in my ribs. I did not care. I jammed my pistol under the edge of its helmet and pulled the trigger 3 times. The Kravok went still. 2 more were still moving. One had the princess by the throat, lifting her off the ground. Her violet eyes were wide with shock. She was trying to use her psionic powers. I could see the air around her hands shimmering, but the Kravok had some kind of shield, something that was blocking her. I grabbed a piece of broken crystal from the shattered display case. It was sharp as a blade. I threw it as hard as I could. It hit the Kravok in the eye slit of its helmet. The creature dropped the princess and staggered back, and in that half-second I was on it, driving my shoulder into its chest, using all my weight to slam it into the marble floor. The third Kravok was behind me. I could feel it. I did not have time to turn. I did not have time to aim. The princess did. Her hand came up, and this time the shimmer in the air was huge. A wave of invisible force that picked up the third Kravok and smashed it into the far wall so hard the crystal cracked. She was on her knees, bleeding from the mouth, breathing like she had run 10 miles. But she had done it. The royal guards finally reached us. A dozen of them, blades drawn, forming a ring around the princess and me. The fight was over. 3 Kravok dead, 2 royal guards dead, an ambassador with bruises and a sergeant with cracked ribs. And a princess on her knees, looking at me. She had violet blood on her lips. Her silver hair was a mess. Her perfect crown was missing. She looked small suddenly, young, not like a princess at all, just like a girl who had almost died. "You," she whispered, "you saved me." I could not answer. The pain in my chest was finally catching up to me. The world was getting dark around the edges, but I managed to nod. Her eyes changed then. I cannot explain it. The coldness was gone. The cruelty was gone. There was only confusion and something else, something that looked almost like fear. "Why?" she asked. "I insulted your people. I refused your alliance. I called you a mayfly. Why did you save me?" I tried to stand. My legs were not working right. I fell back onto the marble, and the last thing I saw before I lost consciousness was her hand reaching for me, her long pale fingers closing around my bloody armor, pulling me closer as she shouted for medics in a voice that suddenly did not sound cold at all. When I woke up in the medical bay, 6 hours later, there were 2 royal guards at my door, not to keep me prisoner, to protect me. Because the Kravok had not come for the ambassador. They had not come for Earth. They had come for the princess herself, and whoever had let them into the palace was still out there, somewhere in the court, waiting for another chance. The game had just begun, and somehow, a soldier from a tiny colony world had just become the most important person in the Zarin Imperium. I had no idea yet how much more I was about to lose, or how much I was about to gain. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft beeping of Zarin machines I did not understand. My ribs were wrapped in some kind of healing gel that glowed faint blue. My left arm was in a sling. Every breath hurt, but the pain was manageable. Someone had cleaned the blood off my face. I heard the door open. I turned my head slowly, expecting a doctor. It was her. Princess Lyra walked in alone. No guards, no servants. She had changed into a simple white robe, nothing like the jeweled gown she had worn in the throne room. Her silver hair was tied back in a plain braid. She looked tired. She looked human almost. She stopped at the foot of my bed. For a long moment she did not speak. Neither did I. I was not going to be the one to break the silence. She was the princess. Let her figure out what to say. Finally, she took a deep breath. "Sergeant Vale," she said, "I owe you my life." "Yes, Your Highness," I said, "you do." Her eyes flashed. For a second I saw the cold princess again, the one who had called us mayflies. Then she closed her eyes and breathed out slowly. When she opened them again, the coldness was gone. "You will not make this easy, will you?" "No, Your Highness, I will not." She actually smiled, just a small smile and only for a moment, but it was real. "My people have a tradition," she said, "an ancient one. When a czar in life is saved by another, a bond is formed. We call it shai-tul, a life debt. It cannot be refused, it cannot be ignored. It must be repaid in equal measure, or the saved one carries the debt for all their days." "I do not need payment, Your Highness." "I am not offering payment. I am telling you what you are now. Whether you wanted it or not, you have a claim on me, on the crystalline throne itself. You may ask me for gold, for land, for a title, for a province to rule as your own. By our most ancient law, I must grant it if it is within my power to give." I thought about that. I thought about it for a long time. I'm a sergeant from a small colony world. My father was a soldier. My mother worked in a farming cooperative. I grew up eating field rations and learning to patch my own clothes. I did not know what to do with gold. I did not know what to do with a province. The idea of owning a piece of a planet was more foreign to me than standing on this alien world. "I do not want any of those things, Your Highness." She frowned. "Then what do you want?" I looked at her, really looked at her, past the silver hair and the violet eyes and the royal title, at the girl who had almost died in her own palace, at the princess who had laughed at my ambassador an hour before someone tried to assassinate her in front of 1,000 witnesses. "I want you to reconsider," I said, "the alliance between our peoples." Her face went cold again, out of the question. "Your Highness, the Kravok came for you, inside your own palace, past your own guards. Whoever betrayed you is still in this court, still close enough to try again. The Kravok are not just Earth's problem anymore. They are your problem too, and if we cannot stand together, neither of us will stand at all. You do not understand our politics. Then help me understand." She stared at me for a long time. Then she turned and walked to the window. The Zarin sun was setting, painting the crystal spires of the capital in shades of gold and rose. "My father does not believe the Kravok attacked me," she said quietly. "He believes it was a human plot, a false flag to force us into your war. He is preparing an order to expel your embassy within the week." My blood turned cold. "That is not possible. We had nothing to do with it." "I know. I saw the Kravok faces. My people verified the biological samples, but my father does not want to believe it because if he believes it, then he must admit that our empire has been compromised from the inside, and that is a truth he cannot accept. So he is going to punish Earth instead." "Yes." "Your Highness, please just talk to him. Just delay the expulsion. Just give us a chance to show you what we can do." She turned back to me. Her violet eyes were very dark now. "Why do you care so much, Marcus Vale? You are one man. Your planet is far away. You will probably never see Earth again if this war reaches our worlds. Why do you fight so hard for an alliance with people who called you mayflies?" "Because I have a little sister," I said. "Her name is Ellie. She is 12 years old. She wants to be a pilot when she grows up. She wants to see other worlds. And if we do not get this alliance, she will not grow up at all. The Kravok will come and they will come and they will not stop until every human is gone. I do not fight for Earth, Your Highness. I fight for Ellie. That is all. That has always been all." The princess was silent. I watched her face. Something was happening behind her eyes, something she was not going to let me see. "I will speak to my father," she said finally. "I will not promise you anything, but I will try." "Thank you." She moved toward the door, then paused. Without turning around, she spoke one more time. "You called me a ruler without grace, Sergeant Vale, in front of my entire court. No one has said such a thing to me in my life." I swallowed. "Your Highness, You were right." And then she was gone. That night I could not sleep. The healing gel was doing its work, but my mind would not stop turning. I kept seeing the Kravok dropping through the ceiling. I kept seeing the princess on her knees, violet blood on her lips. I kept seeing her face when she said I was right. Around the third hour of Zarin night, when the two moons were high and the palace was quiet, my door opened again. This time it was not the princess. It was a servant, a young Zarin woman I had never seen before. She carried a tray with a cup of something steaming. She set it on the small table beside my bed. She bowed. She left. I looked at the cup. Something was wrong. I could not say what, just a feeling. The way a predator looks at bait. I have been a soldier a long time. I grew up on a colony world where half the wildlife wanted to eat you before breakfast. You learn to trust the feeling. I did not drink the tea. Instead, I waited 10 minutes, 20. Nothing happened. I began to feel foolish. Maybe the servant had been told to bring me something to help me sleep. Maybe the princess had sent it herself. Then I noticed the smell. A faint, sweet, flowery smell, not coming from the cup. Coming from the air vent above my bed. I rolled off the bed onto the floor, ignoring the pain in my ribs. I crawled to the door, pounded on it, shouted for the guards. The door opened. The two royal guards looked at me in confusion. I pointed at the vent. Poison, I gasped. Gas, get out, get the princess, get everyone out. They moved fast. The alarm went up within seconds. The ventilation was shut down. A response team arrived in under 3 minutes. They found a small device inside the vent, leaking a slow, odorless neurotoxin that would have put me into a permanent sleep within the hour. The princess came to see me before dawn. She was in her white robe again. Her hair was loose this time. She looked as if she had not slept at all. "Someone is trying very hard to kill us," she said quietly. "Yes, Your Highness. My father is sending me away. For my own safety, he says. He is exiling me to the outer provinces until the investigation is complete. It is a political move. He wants me silent while he decides what to do about Earth, about everything." I did not know what to say. She looked at me with those violet eyes, and for the first time I saw something I had not seen before. Not fear, not anger, something like hope buried very deep, almost afraid to show itself. "I am allowed one bodyguard," she said. "I get to choose." My breath caught. "Your Highness. Will you come with me, Marcus Vale? Will you protect me on the long road ahead? I cannot promise you safety. I cannot promise you glory. I can only promise you that if we both survive this, I will do everything in my power to give your sister the galaxy she deserves to grow up in." I thought about Ellie. I thought about Ambassador Holden, still bruised from his fall. I thought about the Kravok dropping through the ceiling, about the gas leaking from the vent, about all the hidden hands moving in the dark. I thought about the princess who had called us mayflies, and who was now asking a mayfly to stand between her and death. I nodded. "I will come with you, Your Highness." "Lyra," she said quietly, "when we are alone, you may call me Lyra." We left the capital 2 days later on a small transport with a minimal crew. Nobody important waved us goodbye. Nobody cheered. It felt less like an exile and more like a disappearance. 3 hours after we entered deep space, the transport began to shake. Red lights flashed across every console. The pilot screamed something in rapid Zarin. The engines were failing. The navigation was offline. Something had been built into the ship to destroy us. We were going to crash. And there was nothing anyone could do. The pilot was shouting coordinates into the emergency beacon. I grabbed Lyra and pulled her to the escape pod at the rear of the transport. Her royal training kicked in. She did not panic. She moved with me, fast and calm, her hands already pulling emergency supplies off the wall. The pod ejected 30 seconds before the transport tore itself apart. The explosion rocked us through the walls of the small pod, sent us spinning through space, our guidance system screaming warnings in 6 languages. Below us, green and wild, was a jungle moon, uncharted, far from any shipping lane, far from any help. The pod hit atmosphere. Everything turned orange and white with friction heat. Lyra gripped my hand hard enough to hurt. I gripped hers back. We crashed through the jungle canopy with a noise like the end of the world. The pod skipped off a ridge, spun twice, and came to rest on its side in a clearing of purple ferns and twisted black trees. Steam hissed from the cracked hull. The emergency lights flickered and died. I pulled myself up. My ribs hurt worse than before. Lyra was pinned under a fallen supply crate, but she was breathing. I pushed the crate off her and checked her for injuries. A cut on her forehead, nothing broken. "Where are we?" she whispered. I looked out through the cracked window of the pod, at the huge strange trees and the two red moons rising through the evening mist, at the world where everything was trying to eat everything else, at the jungle that had no mercy for princesses or soldiers or anyone at all. "I do not know, Lyra," I said, "but we are alive, and we are going to stay that way." I had no idea how hard that promise was going to be to keep. The jungle wanted us dead. That was the first thing I learned about Kethvar, the moon we had crashed on. Every plant had thorns. Every animal had teeth. The water in the streams glowed slightly at night, and if you drank it without boiling it first, your insides began to glow too, and not in a good way. Lyra learned fast. She had to. I gave her 12 hours to be shocked, 12 hours to cry about her ruined clothes and her lost shoes and her hair full of mud. Then I told her the truth. "Your Highness," I said, "I mean Lyra, you can either be a princess here or you can be alive here. You cannot be both, pick one." She stared at me. Her violet eyes filled with angry tears. For a moment I thought she was going to slap me. Then she wiped her face with the back of her hand, and she took a deep breath, and she nodded. "Teach me," she said. So I did. I taught her how to find dry wood in a wet jungle, how to start a fire without matches, how to build a shelter that would not collapse in the heavy rains that came every afternoon, how to set traps for small animals, how to skin and clean what we caught, how to find plants that were safe to eat, and how to avoid the ones that would put her to sleep forever. She was a fast learner. I will give her that. Her hands were soft at first and they blistered badly, and she did not complain. Her beautiful silk gown was ruined within 3 days, and we cut it up to make bandages and filters for boiling water. She adapted. Princess or not, there was steel inside her that I had not seen before. And her psionic powers were incredibly useful. She could sense living things from much farther away than I could hear or see them. More than once she saved us from walking straight into a nest of something with too many legs and too many teeth. She could also heat things with her mind, which meant we could boil water without a fire when the rain was too heavy to keep flames alive. The hard part was not the jungle. The hard part was the Kravak. They came for us on the 5th day. A patrol, 6 of them, dropped from a small ship at the edge of our valley. They had tracked the emergency beacon from our escape pod. They had come to finish what the palace assassins had started. I saw them first. I had climbed a tall tree to scout the area, and I saw their ship drop through the clouds. I came down the tree so fast I nearly broke my leg. "They are here," I told Lyra. 6 of them, maybe more coming." She did not panic. She nodded once and she picked up her ceremonial blade, the only weapon she had brought from the palace. The blade was beautiful. It was also mostly for show, but the edge was real, and she had been trained to use it since she was a child. I had my rifle, 2 spare power cells, a combat knife, and a half plan. "We cannot fight 6 of them in the open," I said. "So we do not fight them in the open, we make them come to us, one at a time." We chose our ground carefully. A narrow ravine with thick trees on both sides. A bottleneck. I set 3 traps along the approach. Lyra hid at the top of the ravine with her blade, ready to drop on anyone who made it past me. I took position behind a fallen log, my rifle steady. The Kravak came. They were fast and careful, but they were in unfamiliar territory and they did not know the ground. The first trap caught 2 of them. My rifle took care of 2 more. The last 2 reached the bottleneck. One of them saw me. He raised his weapon. Lyra dropped from the trees above like a falling angel, her silver hair flying, her blade shining. She was on him before he could turn. The other one turned to help his partner, and I took him down before he could fire. When it was over, we stood in the quiet ravine, breathing hard, covered in dirt and worse. Lyra had a cut on her arm. I had taken a graze across my thigh that was bleeding more than I wanted to admit, but we were alive, and 6 Kravok were not. Lyra looked at me across the bodies. There was something new in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. "Yes, we did. Together. Yes." She walked over to me and she hugged me. Just a simple hug, her arms around my shoulders, her head against my chest. No royal formality. No shy tulle debt. Just a young woman who had survived something terrible, holding on to the person who had helped her survive. I hugged her back. We buried the Kravok that night. Lyra insisted. She said it was the right thing to do, even for enemies. She was changing. The princess who had laughed at my ambassador in the Crystal Palace would never have wasted energy on a proper burial for her attackers. The woman standing next to me in the firelight, sweat on her forehead and dirt under her nails, was someone else entirely. Over the next 2 weeks, we moved carefully through the jungle. We knew more Kravok would come when the first patrol did not report in. We needed to find shelter. We needed to find a way to call for help. On the 16th day, we found the freighter. It was a human ship, a smuggler probably from the look of the modifications. Somebody had crashed it here years ago, maybe a decade. The jungle had grown over most of it, but the hull was intact, and when I cleared the vines off the main hatch, I found the manual lock still worked. Inside, the ship was in bad shape but not hopeless. The main reactor was dead. The sublight engines were seized, but the long-range communications array was sitting in a sealed compartment, and when I traced the wiring, I realized the backup capacitor was still charged. Just barely. Enough for maybe 1 transmission if I was careful. I turned to Lyra. "We can send 1 message, maybe 2 if we are lucky. After that, the array is done. Who do we call? Your father?" She was quiet for a long time. Sitting in the dim cockpit of that old ship, with the jungle sounds coming through the open hatch, she looked older than her years. Older than her pretty face should allow. "My father is not going to help us," she said finally. "If he wanted to help me, he would not have sent me away. Somebody in his court wants me dead, and my father is either part of it or too afraid to see it. If I call him, the Kravok will know where we are within an hour." "Then who?" She looked up at me. Her violet eyes were steady. "Earth," she said. "I want to call Earth." I blinked at her. "Lyra, that is a huge step. If you make a direct request to Earth for asylum, you are breaking every diplomatic law of your own empire. You are making yourself a fugitive from your own throne. There is no going back from that." "I know. Your father will declare you a traitor." "I know. The nobles loyal to the Kravok will hunt you openly, and the ones who are not loyal to the Kravok will have to choose sides. You will start a civil war." "Marcus," she said quietly, "I know what I am doing. I have been thinking about it for 2 weeks. My empire is sick. It is dying from the inside. If I go back quietly, nothing will change. If I hide, nothing will change. If I die out here, nothing will change. But if I reach out to Earth, if I reach out to your people, the mayflies, the people I called fragile and short-lived, if I do that, then at least the sickness will have to come into the light." I stared at her, at this silver-haired princess sitting in the dust of a dead smuggler ship, planning to overthrow her own family's power. "You are sure about this?" "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." I nodded. I helped her set up the transmitter. We tuned it to the emergency frequency that Earth monitors for all its citizens abroad. Lyra took a deep breath. She pressed the transmit button. "This is Princess Lyra Nessa Vel Shara of the Crystalline Throne," she said, her voice clear and calm. "I am formally requesting political asylum from the government of Earth. I have information critical to the survival of my empire and your species. The Zarin High Court has been compromised by the Kravok swarm. I cannot trust my own father. I can trust only one thing in this galaxy, and that is the human people, who showed me kindness when I showed them none. I am on the jungle moon Keth Var in the southern continent near the wreck of the freighter Halcyon Dawn. I have one protector with me. His name is Sergeant Marcus Vale. He is the reason I am alive. He is the reason I am making this call. If you come for us, come fast. The Kravok are hunting us. We cannot hold out much longer." She released the transmit button. The array made a soft dying sound. The little green light went red. "Now we wait," she whispered. "Now we wait." We waited for 3 days. On the 4th day, we heard the sound, a deep, distant thunder. We climbed out of the freighter and looked up at the sky. A formation of ships was coming down through the clouds. Not Zarin ships, not Kravok ships, human ships. Earth destroyers with the blue and white flag painted on their hulls, descending into the atmosphere of an alien moon, looking for one princess and one sergeant. Lyra grabbed my hand. She was crying, I was too. We did not say anything. We did not need to. Earth had come. But as the first shuttle landed in the clearing and human Marines poured out to secure the area, I realized something cold and true. This was not the end of our journey. This was only the beginning. We had just lit a fire that would burn across 2 empires, and neither of us knew yet how many people would have to stand in the flames before it was over. The human shuttle took us straight to the flagship, a destroyer called the Harrow Point. It was not a big ship by Zarin standards, not even a little bit. But when Lyra stepped onto its landing deck, she looked at it like it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Maybe because it had come for her. Maybe because every Marine who saluted her as we walked past saluted her as an ally, not as a conquered thing, not as a mayfly. Admiral Caroline Brennan met us at the main corridor. She was a tall woman with short silver hair and a voice that sounded like it had given orders in 20-star systems. She looked Lyra up and down, taking in the torn clothing, the healed scrape on her forehead, the silver hair tied back in a messy braid. "Your Highness," the Admiral said, and she bowed, a real bow, from a human admiral to a Zarin princess who had just called herself our refugee. "Welcome aboard. We have been trying to reach you for 6 days. The whole galaxy is on fire." "What do you mean?" Lyra asked. "Your father declared you dead 2 days ago. He blamed Earth for your assassination. He has ordered all human citizens in the Imperium to be arrested on sight. Our embassies have been closed. Our ambassadors are being held as hostages. 3 of our colony worlds near the Zarin border are already under blockade." Lyra's face went pale. "He thinks I am dead." "He wants you to be dead," I said quietly. "Whoever pushed him into this wanted exactly what they are getting. A war. A quick war. Earth crushed before the Kravok even arrive. It is brilliant, actually. The traitors in his court have found a way to hand my people to the swarm without firing a single shot themselves." Admiral Brennan nodded. "That was our analysis. The princess's survival changes everything. If we can prove she is alive, if we can prove she chose to come to us, if we can prove the assassination attempts came from inside her own court, the political landscape of the entire sector shifts." Lyra lifted her chin. Some of the old princess came back, but it was different now. It was not cruel, it was steel. "Then let us prove all of it. Admiral, I wish to make a broadcast, a direct message to every loyal Zarin house, to every noble who still remembers what our empire used to stand for. I want to record it now on this ship, with Sergeant Vale standing beside me, with a human flag behind me. I want them to see exactly where I am and why." Brennan smiled a thin smile. "That is a bold move, Your Highness." "I am finished with careful moves." We recorded the message in the Admiral's conference room. Lyra stood tall. She had cleaned up, but she had refused to wear a royal gown. She wore a plain gray uniform that Brennan had given her, with the small blue emblem of Earth over her heart. I stood one step behind her and to the side, in my own cleaned uniform, the Terran Defense Corps emblem on my shoulder. Lyra spoke for 14 minutes. She told the whole story. The assassination attempt in the throne room, the poison in her chamber, the sabotage transport, the jungle. She named the noble houses she suspected of working with the Kravok, and she named the evidence, and she showed the recordings we had pulled from the helmet of a Kravok infiltrator we had killed in the ravine. Recordings that included the voices of 2 senior Zarin lords giving orders. She ended with this: "I am the rightful heir to the crystalline throne. I am alive. I stand with the human people because they stood for me when my own court would not. I call upon every Zarin who still remembers honor to rise. Meet me at the Vel Tharis system. Bring your ships. Bring your warriors. Bring your faith. The swarm is at our gates, and the only path through is together." When the broadcast went live across every open channel in the sector, the galaxy held its breath. The first response came within 6 hours. House Kel Morin, an old northern noble family, declared for Lyra, then House Vas Rin, then 3 more. By the end of the first day, 21 noble houses had sworn their ships and their swords to the princess. By the end of the second day, it was 47. By the end of the third day, almost half the Zarin Imperium was openly in rebellion against the old emperor. And the Kravok came. Not infiltrators, not assassins, the real swarm, the main fleet. They had been waiting for exactly this moment, for the Imperium to tear itself apart, and when they saw the opening they came pouring through the outer systems like water through a broken dam. Thousands of ships, millions of warriors, a tide of black armor and hungry eyes. They hit the Zarin border worlds first. They hit them hard. Entire populated worlds went silent within hours. The Zarin fleet, split by civil war, could not respond in strength. The old emperor ordered his loyal ships to hunt down Lyra instead of reinforcing the border. It was a catastrophe. Admiral Brennan called a war council on her flagship. Every loyalist Zarin noble who could reach the Harrow Point was there. Earth commanders from 3 sectors were there. I was there too, standing at Lyra's shoulder because she had refused to attend without me. I was the strangest thing in that room, a sergeant, in a room full of admirals and lords and princesses, but nobody challenged my place, not after what we had been through. The council argued for hours. The Zarin nobles wanted to retreat, to regroup, to let the Kravok take the border worlds and fight them at the inner systems where the defenses were stronger. The human commanders wanted to hit the Kravok fleet at Vel Tharis, the capital moon, where the old emperor was sitting on his throne and doing nothing. If we could take Vel Tharis, we could end the civil war in one stroke, and then turn to face the swarm with the full strength of a united empire. It was a huge gamble. The Vel Tharis system was the most heavily defended place in Zarin space. Even in civil war, the old emperor commanded thousands of ships there. A direct assault might destroy us all. Lyra listened to everything, then she stood up. "We attack Vel Tharis," she said. "And we attack now before my father can consolidate, before the Kravok can reinforce. Every hour we wait is an hour our empire bleeds. Admiral Brennan, how many ships can Earth commit?" 211, Your Highness. Every destroyer, every frigate, every transport we can pull from our colony defenses. It is everything we have. If we lose this battle, Earth has no fleet left. "And loyalist houses," Lyra said, turning to the Zarin nobles. "How many?" 360, Your Highness, Lord Vas Rin said, "and 40,000 ground troops." "Then we have enough," Lyra said. "We go now, tonight." Lord Kel Morin, the oldest of the noble house leaders, stood slowly. He was white-haired and had seen 3 civil wars. "Your Highness, forgive me, 200 human ships, 360 of ours, against thousands of your father's fleet. These are not winning numbers." Lyra smiled. It was not a happy smile, it was a warrior's smile. "Lord Kel Morin, how many of my father's ships will actually fight for him, do you think? when they see their princess leading the assault in person, when they see that their princess has returned from the dead with a human fleet behind her, when they see that half their own empire has already turned against the traitor on the throne. How many of those thousands will fire on me, do you think, when they see me in the vanguard? The old lord was silent for a moment. Then he laughed, a short, surprised, proud laugh. Very few, your highness, very few indeed. Then let us give them the choice. Let us fly into Vel Tharis together and let the old guard see the new dawn. Admiral Brennan, ready your fleet. We leave at dawn. That night Lyra came to my quarters. She did not knock. She just walked in and she sat down on the edge of my bunk and she looked at her hands for a long time. Tomorrow, she said finally. Tomorrow. If I die tomorrow, Marcus. You will not die tomorrow. If I do, I want you to know something. You saved my life 3 times now, in the throne room, in the medical bay with the poison, in the ravine against the Kravok patrol, but you saved more than my life. You saved the person I am going to be, whatever I become if I survive this. If I ever sit on the crystalline throne, the empress who sits there will be the one you helped make, and she will be a very different empress than the princess who laughed at your ambassador. I did not know what to say, so I said nothing. I just reached out and took her hand. She squeezed my fingers, hard. I'm afraid, Marcus. So am I. Will you fight beside me tomorrow, not from a command ship, not in the rear, beside me on the ground, where it matters? Always. She nodded. She stood up. She did not say goodbye. She did not need to. The next morning, the combined fleet jumped into the Vel Tharis system at full combat speed, and the largest space battle in 1,000 years began. The fleet dropped out of jump into the Vel Tharis system, and straight into the worst storm of fire I had ever seen. I was not on a bridge. I was on a dropship, packed in with 40 human marines and 20 Zarin knights in their tall, curved armor. Lyra sat across from me, in light combat gear, her ceremonial blade at her hip and a human plasma rifle across her knees. Her silver hair was tied back tight. Her violet eyes were calm. Through the viewports of the dropship, I could see the battle in space. Admiral Brennan's flagship Harrow Point was exchanging heavy fire with a Zarin battleship 3 times its size. Human frigates were weaving between larger Zarin cruisers, taking terrible damage but holding. Loyalist Zarin dreadnoughts were engaging their own former fleet mates. But Lyra had been right. Not all of the old Emperor's fleet was fighting. When her personal banner appeared on the screens of the Vel Tharis defense grid, 11 full squadrons of Imperial ships stood down. They did not fire a shot. Their captains opened channels to the flagship and formally swore allegiance to the princess. Dozens more ships just went silent, refusing to fire on either side. The battle in space became a strange thing. Thousands of ships, but only perhaps a third of them actually fighting. The rest floated in silent choice, watching to see who would win before committing. On the ground, there was no such hesitation. The old emperor had ordered his ground troops to defend the palace to the last. There were Kravok hybrid units mixed with his forces, which all by itself was proof of everything Lyra had been saying. The enemy had been inside the throne from the start. Our dropship came in low and fast over the outer gardens of the palace. Anti-aircraft fire hammered us from all sides. I saw 2 of our sister ships go down in flames. The pilot swore and pulled us hard to the left, and we took a hit on our port side that sent the whole cabin spinning. "Brace," the pilot shouted. "Brace for impact." We slammed into the palace terrace at an angle, skidded across 200 yards of ornamental stone, and came to rest against the shattered base of a statue of some ancient Zarin king. The back ramp blew open. Marines poured out. Lyra and I went with them, and the battle for the crystalline palace began. It was a blur of fire and noise and faces. The loyalist Zarin knights moved in tight formation with the human marines, and I will tell you something. I have fought beside a lot of soldiers in my life, but I have never seen anything like those 2 groups working together. The Zarin were taller, faster, stronger, but the humans were scrappy and stubborn and willing to try anything. Together, they were unstoppable. We fought our way up the terrace, level by level, room by room. The old Emperor's personal guard met us in the Crystal Gallery, the same hall where Lyra had first laughed at our ambassador, and the fighting there was the worst I have ever seen. The crystal walls shattered. The chandeliers fell. I took a hit to the shoulder that went right through my armor, and I did not feel it until later. Lyra was a force of nature. She moved through the battle with her blade and her psionics together, and the Imperial guards who saw her hesitated. They had served her family all their lives. They had rocked her as a baby. They could not bring themselves to fight her directly. Some dropped their weapons. Some actually turned their blades against their own side. A few fought her anyway, out of loyalty to her father, and Lyra had to make a choice every time. She tried to disarm them without killing them. She succeeded more often than not. We reached the throne room at the end of a corridor lined with the bodies of too many brave people on both sides. The heavy doors were sealed. I placed charges. Lyra stood back. The doors blew inward in a cloud of splinters and dust. And there on the crystalline throne sat the old Emperor. He was alone. His personal guard had already surrendered or fled. His advisors had abandoned him. The two Zarin lords Lyra had named as traitors in her broadcast, House Zarn Kora and House Velis Dar, were lying on the floor near the throne, already dead, killed by their own hands when the battle turned. They had known what would happen to them when the truth came out. The old Emperor looked up as we entered. He was a thin old man with silver hair like his daughter and violet eyes that had gone dull and tired. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not stand. He just looked at Lyra, and there were tears on his face. "My daughter," he whispered. Lyra walked slowly across the throne room. Her boots echoed on the crystal floor. She stopped in front of her father. The plasma rifle was in her hands but pointed at the floor. "Father," she said, "it is over." "I know." "Did you know about the Kravok, about the traitors in your own court? Did you know all along?" The old Emperor closed his eyes. "I suspected. I did not want to believe. And when you were attacked, I chose to believe what was easier to believe. I chose to blame the humans. I chose to punish them rather than look inside my own house. It was the worst choice of my life. It was not the choice of an emperor. It was the choice of a tired old man who was afraid." Lyra was silent for a very long time. "I will not take your life, father," she said finally. "I will not be that kind of empress, but you will step down. You will renounce the throne. You will live out the rest of your years in the old summer palace under guard, and you will never issue another order in my empire. And you will witness with your own eyes as I undo every single mistake you made. Do you accept this?" "I accept it." "Say it formally." The old Emperor drew a long, shaking breath. He stood up from the crystalline throne. He removed the thin silver circlet that marked his office, and he laid it on the seat of the throne. "I, Emperor Theliath Velshara, 78th of my name, do formally abdicate the crystalline throne of the Zarin Imperium. I pass the circlet and all rights, powers, and duties of the throne to my daughter and heir, Lyra Nessa Velshara. Let this be witnessed before the assembled peoples of two worlds." It was witnessed by me, by Admiral Brennan, who had arrived moments behind us, by 3 loyalist Zarin lords, by the old Emperor himself, and by his silent, weeping daughter, who picked up the circlet with shaking hands and set it on her own head. And that was how a princess became an empress on a battlefield. The war was not over. The Kravok were still pouring into the border worlds, but with the Imperium finally united, with humans and Zarin fighting side by side, the tide began to turn within weeks. Empress Lyra personally led the counterattack. I stood beside her, promoted far beyond my rank by her imperial decree, a simple sergeant suddenly serving as her personal liaison to the combined fleet. We pushed the Kravok back, system by system, world by world. It took 2 years. It cost millions of lives on both sides. But in the end, the swarm was broken, their great hives shattered, their leaders scattered. The survivors fled into the deep black between the stars, and the galaxy breathed a cautious, shaking breath. The alliance between Earth and the Zarin Imperium became the bedrock of a new age. Other species joined, one by one. The Threxy, the Lowy, the Morvaran. Together we built something that had never existed before. The Grand Accord. A true alliance of equals, where the youngest species had as much voice as the oldest, because we had all bled together in the dark. 3 years after the end of the war, I stood with Lyra in a quiet garden in the restored crystalline palace. It was the same garden where, on my very first day as her personal guard, I had stopped to watch a silver flower that bloomed only at night. It felt like 10 lifetimes ago. Lyra was in a simple dress, not imperial robes. Her crown was not on her head. The garden belonged to just the two of us. "I have something to ask you, Marcus," she said. "Anything." "The galaxy is quiet for the first time in 1,000 years. My empire is stable. The Accord is strong. Earth is thriving. The rebuilding is nearly complete. And for the first time in my life, I am going to take 3 days off. Just 3 days. For myself. I thought I might spend them with someone who has been beside me through all of this, if he is willing." I smiled at her. "Your Highness, I mean Empress, I mean." "Lyra, still Lyra. Always Lyra when it is just us." "Lyra, I would be honored." She took my hand. We walked through the garden under the silver flowers, and we talked about nothing important. My sister Ellie was going to flight school next year. She had been accepted into the combined Earth-Zarin pilot program, the first of its kind, which Lyra had created specifically for young humans who wanted to fly Imperial ships. Ellie was 15 now. She still wrote me letters every week. She always asked when I was coming home. "Marcus," Lyra said quietly as we stopped beside a small fountain, "I have been thinking. I do not know how to say this properly. My people have rituals for these things, and your people have rituals for these things, and they are not the same rituals." "For what things?" She looked at me. Her violet eyes were steady and clear and not afraid at all. "I love you," she said. "I have loved you since the jungle on Kethvar, perhaps since the poison in the medical bay, perhaps since the first time you spoke to me in my own language and told me I had no grace. I love you, and I do not know how to say it in any tradition except simply saying it. So I am saying it." I could not speak for a moment. "Lyra, you do not have to say it back. You do not have to give me an answer now. I am an empress, and I know that empresses do not always get what they want. If you cannot, or if you do not feel the same way, or if your heart belongs to some human woman on Earth, I will accept that. You will always have a place at my side as my friend and my most trusted ally. I am not asking for a debt to be paid. I am asking only if there is any chance that you might." I put my finger against her lips. "Lyra, be quiet for a second." She was quiet. "I love you too," I said. "I have loved you since the jungle on Kethvar, perhaps since you hugged me in the ravine, perhaps since you first asked me to call you by your name. I have been afraid to say it because you are an empress and I am a sergeant, and because I did not want you to think I was claiming some reward for saving your life. But I love you. And if you will have me, then I will spend whatever years I have beside you." She smiled, a real smile, a sunrise smile. She stepped closer and she rested her forehead against mine, and for a long, quiet moment we just breathed together. "The court is going to hate this," she whispered. "The court will get over it. The traditional nobles will say I am diluting the royal bloodline. Let them say it. Your bloodline put me where I am standing." She laughed. It was a pure, bright sound, nothing like the cold, cruel laugh she had used in the throne room all those years ago. Our wedding, 6 months later, was the first mixed-species imperial marriage in Zarin history. It was broadcast to every world in the Accord. Ellie came as my witness, 17 now, in her cadet uniform, looking at the crystal palace with eyes as wide as dinner plates. Admiral Brennan gave Lyra away in place of her father, who was there, but too frail to walk far. Lord Kel Morin officiated in the old Zarin style, and a human priest officiated in the old Earth style, and both ceremonies were held in the same hour under the same sky. The Zarin word for someone like me, who has married into the royal house but did not come from a royal bloodline, is Lord Consort. So officially I became Lord Consort Marcus Vale of the Crystalline Throne. I still prefer just Marcus when I can get away with it. I still wear a simple uniform most days. I still sleep better on a military cot than on a feather bed, a habit I cannot seem to break. 2 years after the wedding, we had our first child, a little girl with silver hair and gray eyes. We named her Hope. She is small and strong and stubborn, and she learns everything fast, and she laughs at everything. 5 years after our wedding, a signal came from beyond the galaxy. It was faint and strange and very old, a signal that the oldest Zarin archives recognized as something they had heard before, long ago, in the time before the Imperium was founded. A signal from something that lived in the deep black between galaxies, something that had sent the Kravok long ago as scouts and farmers, something older and bigger and more patient than any of us had ever imagined. The Grand Accord met in emergency session on Earth. Every species sent their leaders. Empress Lyra and I went together. Hope stayed with Ellie, who was now a fully commissioned pilot with her own small ship. In the Great Hall on Earth, with the ambassadors of 1,000 worlds listening, Lyra took my hand. "They came before us once," she said to the assembly. "They sent the swarm to clear the way. They will come again, and next time they will not send scouts. They will come themselves. Our civilizations have years to prepare, perhaps decades, perhaps not even that long, but prepare we will because we are no longer what we were. We are an accord. We stand together, and we will not be cleared away." She looked at me. She squeezed my hand. She smiled, not a politician's smile, but my wife's smile, the smile she saved for me. Then she gave the floor to me, because there was one more thing I needed to say, and she wanted me to say it. I walked to the podium. I was not a sergeant anymore, not officially, but I had dressed in a Terran Defense Corps uniform for this speech, because I wanted every human in the galaxy to remember where I came from. I looked out at the assembled faces. Zarin, human, Threxy, Lowy, Morvarin, a dozen other species, all of them waiting. "My name is Marcus Vale," I said. "I was born on a small colony world. My parents were not important. I was a sergeant in my planet's army, and I was sent to guard an ambassador who was trying to save our people. A princess once called us mayflies. She said we were loud and fragile and short-lived. She said we were not worth allying with. Then that princess almost died, and a human soldier decided she was worth saving anyway, and then a lot of things happened that nobody planned." I paused. I looked at Lyra. She was smiling at me. "I am still a human. I still only have the 80 years we were born with. My daughter will only have her 80 and her daughter after her. We are not old like the Zarin. We will never be old like the Zarin. But we have learned something in our short lives that even the oldest species sometimes forget. And that is this: no life is too short to stand up. No life is too small to matter. No person is too unimportant to change the fate of a galaxy. We all get the same choice every single day. To show up or to not show up, to help or to not help, to stand beside the people who need us or to walk away." I took a deep breath. Something is coming from the deep dark, something that thinks we are small, something that thinks we will scatter like leaves. Let them think it. Let them come. We are the Accord. We are the people who stood up. We showed up when it mattered. We will keep showing up for as long as we have breath, because that is what we do. I looked at the whole room, at the 1,000 different faces, at my wife, at my empress, at the silver-haired girl from the Crystal Palace who had once called my people mayflies. "We are not going anywhere." The hall was silent for a long moment. Then one human marine in the back row stood up. He just stood. He did not say anything. A moment later, a Zarin lord stood up beside him, then a Threxy ambassador, then a Lowy speaker, then a Morvaran matriarch. Row by row, species by species, the assembled accord rose to its feet quietly without a word. Lyra came and stood beside me. She took my hand. Our daughter Hope, back in the palace on Vel Tharis, was watching the live broadcast with Ellie. And years later, she told me she had stood up too, in front of the screen, because she did not want to be the only one in the galaxy still sitting down. I squeezed Lyra's hand. She squeezed mine back. Whatever came from the deep dark, we would face it together. The princess who had refused the alliance, the soldier who had changed her mind, the empire and the earth and the accord they had built, the daughter they were raising, the quiet garden where they would sit together and watch the silver flowers bloom on the nights when there was nothing else to fight. And I think, looking back on all of it, that is the thing I am proudest of. Not the battles, not the wars won, not the alliance that saved two civilizations. I am proudest of a small private moment in a ruined hospital room years ago when a princess asked a sergeant why he had saved her, and the sergeant answered because he did not let people die just because they were rude to him. Everything after that, every single thing, grew from that one moment. And if my daughter Hope grows up in a galaxy that is a little kinder, a little braver, a little more willing to stand up, then I will have done something worth the 80 years I was given. That is my story. That is how a human soldier changed a princess's fate, and how the princess, in turn, changed the fate of the galaxy. We are not going anywhere. And neither are you.